All right, so I'm gonna try and do a tutorial instead of just doing my usual live streams where I just kind of work and lately I've been working in without any audio or mic on or any chat, so I can just focus on making the work. But I've been getting an itch to kind of you know do a tutorial and teach something, right? To explain something. I'm waiting on my one job as an adjunct professor. The session I have in the fall is like a 5 week session, so I've got like I don't know when is that? It's September. So I've got about a month and some change where I'm not going to be teaching when I was planning on teaching now. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm going to edit this down. uh, so yeah, Godot. I'm going to try and like just make this for someone that's starting from next to nothing. So if you are more advanced or if you're intermediate or whatever, you can skim through some of this stuff, just jump through the video. And if you see me explaining things like the different variable types, you probably don't need that if you have a little bit of programming experience. A little background on my programming experience in game design. I started late 2019. Well, technically around like 2013, I attempted to learn C++, and I had made a text-based adventure where you kind of choose your own adventure type of thing. And I didn't get too far with that because C++ was just way over my head, especially at the time. And then I did a little bit of RPG Maker. At some point, I could pull up some stuff I did in that. Actually had a really cool world map made for it. But anyway, I've been making games pretty consistently since late 2019. I did take about like 9 months off, but outside of that, yeah, to 9/6/2024, I've been working on and thinking about making games for probably like 20 to 30 hours a week, pretty consistently. So anyway, here are some games that I've been working on this computer. I did actually start on an older computer, so there are a bunch of games on that one too that I don't have here. But we're going to make a new project. And this one's going to be a turn-based role-playing game. And so I'll call it like turn-based tutorial. All right. Create. Boom. We just leave it on the OpenGL 3.0. I am on Godot version 3. I think technically 3.5. It'll tell us down here. Yeah, 3.5.3. I do that for stability. I had a lot of issues with Godot 4 when it came out. I hate to say anything negative about Godot because I think it does so many things really well, but that release felt super rushed. I do not think it should have been out of beta, and there are a lot of people that had issues with it, and I couldn't even get like the most basic scene. Like if I just made a 2D scene and then hit run, or if I made something that I could move around like a kinematic, and I gave it some code to move and then ran the game, that thing would be so laggy. I mean, nothing I could do would fix it. And I spent a week trying to troubleshoot it with no avail. So that really turned me off of Godot 4, and frankly, it almost turned me off of Godot completely. I was about to go back to Gamemaker. Which reminds me, I got my primary start in game making with Gamemaker. That was really helpful, but after using Godot for so long now, I kind of view Gamemaker as like a fossil. It just feels so out of date, and it's really not intuitive. And frankly, I think it leads to a lot of poor programming practices. Not that I'm some programming expert or anything, don't get me wrong. But the fact that every script or every function is global, by default, I mean, that is just crazy. Like all of the built-in functions just work in any object. It doesn't matter what it is. Now, I believe they did add maybe a year or two ago static functions that you could you could have those at different levels within the object, and then of course they have the constructors, and you can give them their own functions. I believe. I don't even know if they have that. But like you also don't have vector classes in Gamemaker. That's something you have to do custom. It's just kind of goofy. Like why wouldn't you have that? And again, maybe they added this. I haven't used it in a couple of years. So anyway, back to Godot. So we're doing a turn-based battler role-playing game. Okay, like we're just gonna do really, really basic. I might pull up like what. So we do Dragon Quest NES. This is kind of what. Actually, no. Let's do Dragon Quest. We're just doing a plain black background. I think these would have that. Of course, I'm seeing all the remake stuff, like something like this. Spoiler alert. Oh my gosh, can we just find a regular? Yeah, I think I actually used this picture for a thumbnail on one of my series. So that's what we're going for. We'll probably get multiple characters in the party. We'll have multiple enemies. We'll print out everything in a similar aesthetic here. I think I do want to emulate this pretty closely. I have a feeling it's not going to save in the format I need. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and copy that. And where's my paint? Did I lose paint? Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to put that in there. I'm doing this so that I can save it in a format that I can open up in Photos. And so we'll do like, it's defaulting to PNG. That's fine. We'll do Dragon Quest 3 battle. I'm going to put that in downloads. And so now I can go to downloads and open that up. And this is something I like to do when I'm working from a reference. Is let me minimize that. I don't need that. And so you can do something like that. You can make Godot the primary, and then you can scale this up, something like that. And that's just nice. I mean, I don't really need it at this stage, but we're going to reference that later. Okay. So a turn-based combat system, they're pretty much always going to be heavily UI. And so I like to work with control nodes for my entire battle system. Now, if you had like an action RPG, you'll be doing that in a Node 2D space because that is, kind of what it's designed for, right? Control nodes are specifically for UI. And when I do my turn-based systems, I'm thinking all UI. So I like to start off, we're going to name it Battle. And that's just a regular control node, the base control. We're going to give it a color rect. We're going to make that black. Black is really easy. Okay, you click on this color here and just drag it to the bottom left corner. I think technically you can do like anywhere on the very bottom, but just out of habit, I go to the bottom left because like if you look at the, what is this, the saturation, I believe. Right, this is saturation left to right, and then this is value, which is the brightness. So it's saying how much white versus black is in it. And then left to right is saying how much of the color is in it. And then we have the hue slider over here. And so that's HSV, that's hue, saturation, value. Anyway, we're going to go back, just do black. You can see it doesn't matter what your hue is, right? There's always going to be all that black and all that white in the top corner, okay? So we're doing black. You could modify it a bit. You could do like a really dark gray maybe, or like, I see some games, like I know Earthbound, they don't use a pure black because I guess it's a little bit too intense. And so if you look at it real closely, it's got like a little bit of blue or purple in it. But for our purposes here, we're doing simple. So I'm going to rename that background. You just double click on it and you can type that in. I might make a folder for battle. Like if you're thinking about making an entire game, you probably want to organize your things from the get-go like this. And so I'm going to hit Control S, and we're going to save it in the battle folder. So we now have the battle scene. That's a scene file. You can see if I close this out, we can double click that, open that up. Another thing I'm going to do, which is I'm going to show you how I would approach making a game, and then I'm going to walk you through what that function's doing. So if I load up, what's the last game I used it in? This one. I'm going to drag my utility folder from the last game I worked on, because that's going to have the most up-to-date version. I'm going to make sure I'm clicked into the top level folder there, and just drag it in. Now, if I was still clicked within the battle folder, that utility folder would have gone in here, and I would have had to drag it out. It's not a big deal, but just be aware of that. So what I do every time I make a new project, I go to my new project initializer file, and this is a script. It's a tool script, and so I uncomment the tool, I save that, and then I open this project or this this scene, and so it runs that code. And you can see down here it tells me it ran, and it tells me, you know, I got make sure you uncomment that. And so I'm going to walk through everything it's doing. So it's setting up my window size to 320 by 180. It's setting up my test width to 3 times that factor. So I have the base. Let's do this in Paint real quick. Like, so say I have, I'm just going to draw a rectangle real quick. Say that's my base window, right? We're just stretching everything 3 times, if you can imagine that, okay? And you'll see, I'll actually demonstrate that in Godot real quick. So if we go to project settings, it defaults to the general tab. We go down to window, you can see it updated these, right? This little like refresh icon, or undo icon rather, that'll reset it to the default. But I run this script so that I don't have to come in here and manually set all my settings. Now the one I haven't been able to automate is the stretch. And so I'm going to do viewport and keep. Now that's going to give me pixel perfect stretching, and also gives you pixel perfect movement. So, and we'll talk about that later if we get into the overworld, but for now I'm just focused on the battle system. So input map, this you don't have to worry about this. This is just something to help with my code. I have an L3 button. And then let's real quick go through everything else I'm doing. I'm setting borderless to true. You can see if I run the project here, we can, no, we don't want this project. Let me run this one, select current. So you can see there's no border, there's no, you know, title bar. And then I have a hotkey, which is not working because I didn't set my auto loads. So we're going to pause for a second. I'm going to go and set my auto loads here. This is not something you have to worry about for your stuff. So I do globals first. And so basically these are just like helper global scripts that I use. For example, globals just holds, uncomment that. It holds helpful things that I need to use everywhere in my project. And you can see I'm updating this for what I plan the game to be. That's all I have to do. Like every time I make a new game, I have this initialized, and we call randomize at the start, which gives us a random seed for the RNG random number generators. You don't have to worry about that right now. We'll get into that later. And then I have debug, which just has helper functions like a full screen toggle, pause toggle, quit, reload. These are things that are really helpful for me to iterate games quickly. Yeah, so we can come back to that in another video. Right now I'm going to close these out because we don't need these. And we're going to finish going through this. GPU pixel snap. I don't even know if I need that with the viewport settings that I'm using, but that ensures that, you know, we're always snapping to pixels. We're not using sub-pixel movement, things like that. And then these are custom GD script settings that I like using. I don't care about not using the return value because there are a lot of functions that'll throw up that warning. Really, don't worry about this. I don't want to get too granular here. Just know that these are things that I've used in every project because they help me, and then I ended up putting it into this script that I can run every time I make a new project. So I'll close that out. And it would work nicely as a plugin, but I wasn't able to get plugins working, so I just run it manually. Anyway, you can see it got a lot smaller, right? We were kind of zoomed out, and that's because our viewport is now smaller. And our viewport is this like light blue purple outline we see here. And our background, since I already set it to full rect, it automatically resizes to that shape. So that's really handy for your UI stuff. All right, so we have a background. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. We might as well lock the top node too. We can go ahead and give this a script up here. Control, I'm going to delete the default template. Actually, I'll show it to you one time just so it looks like you know, what you bring in. All right, and so you can see it has like this little template. It's telling you how things work, but I don't need that. I'll go ahead and give it a class name battle just for now. That's going to be useful down the road because we can do things like let me make another script real quick. Or like I can show you in debug. So we can do something like, you know, if self is battle. I mean, you probably wouldn't do something like that, but the point is we can do a class type check using that battle, which probably isn't that helpful. And that's not a good example of what we can do. Another thing we can do is like if we call, say we have a node reference to battle. I'll show you this in globals because, like, say for some reason I needed battle, and then we would set that later on. Like if I did function ready, you know, and then we do globals.battle equals self. I'm not saying I need this again. I'm just saying it's there. That is probably because did I not load globals or what's going on? Let me try doing a reload. Sometimes that happens. You just have to reload the current project. Seems to happen when you're doing new class types every now and then. So you can see those errors went away. That's good. So now we can reference battle, and since we typed it, let's say I give, you know, hey world, and it's going to return nothing, and we'll just pass. But it has that function, and so now watch this. When I put the period and I start typing hey, right? Now we have that autocomplete, and that's only because we typed that variable, and so it's assuming that battle is going to be battle, right? It can't be anything else besides battle or null. And null just means it's nothing, right? It's like your default setting for a node. And so you might want to do like, in this instance, you might want to do, you know, if battle.heyworld. And if you know programming, you probably don't need to, you know, you can probably jump ahead a little bit here, but I'm just going to go into this real quick. You could also, that's equivalent to like if battle not equal null, you can do battle.heyworld. There's also like if get node or null battle. Oh no, you need battle path. I think there's, I forget the function, but there is a way to get the node path. It's something like get node path. and and then you would do your code there. Again, I don't remember the exact function for that, but I'm just giving you examples. All right, so we don't need battle like that, so I'm going to delete all that. That was just for show. Don't need that. Okay, so the ready function, that's a built-in function. I think they call them virtual functions. So ready does not return anything. That's why this is void. The arrow is always pointing to what it returns. And then we're just running a little bit of code, but we don't need that. So I'm just going to save this, and then we have that. What we need to focus on now is just getting the general layout of the project in place. And so I like to start with a margin container. This reminds me, I'm going to load a theme that I have. It's just something I use. It's called farming theme, but it's just what I end up using for most of my projects. This has a bunch of custom settings for the theme, for the UI stuff. And so I load that in every time. You don't have to worry about that. Just know that your fonts are going to look a little bit wonky until you put in a custom pixel font. If I show you up here, we have the default font. You're going to want to load on it. I don't need to open that all the way up. But so you would go up to here, you'll do new dynamic font, and then you just load in the font. It's pretty straightforward. Or actually, it's not. I'm remembering now. It's actually not straightforward at all. But I'm not going to get into fonts right now. It's too granular. Maybe what I'll do is give you a font to use in the project, and then you can just drag it to the default font. But anyway, that's my font. So we have a margin container. Again, I want that full rect. This is going to be just my outer margin. I come from a bit of a design background, and so like I'm used to working with a margin around the outside edge. Okay, like if I'm working on something that's going to be printed, right? You always have your margins, you have your bleeds and whatnot. So that's good to have. Sometimes you might hear it referred to as a buffer. But for this is just the margin. And what this is doing, you can see if I, just for demonstration, if I put in a color rect, see how it's not going to the edges, right? It has that little buffer. That's what this is doing, the margin container. You can see down here, if we go to theme overrides, all of these are set to the theme, but I can, like for example, if I use this, right, see how that right margin disappears? And so we could do like 32, okay? So you can use whatever you want. I think I have it set to something like 4 or 8. I mean, it's something very small. Anyway, all right, so we have a margin container. I might just look at that picture real quick. So what I'm thinking is, or what I'm seeing is that we have basically a vertical setup. So it's going to be a V-box container. There's going to be an H-box down here for the enemies in the middle. There's going to be an H-box, and then there's going to be, some more granular things. But so let's get the general setup. So I go to click on margin container first because I want to put it within that. Similar to how these folders work, right? Whatever you have highlighted, that's where whatever you're adding is going to go under. So we add child node. We're going to do VBox container. And let me take a quick look here. Actually, I might go to this view just for a little bit. So we have a VBox. I'm going to need to get a 9-patch rect going. I can talk about that in a sec. I think for now I might just use panels because that's something that. Nah, let's do it right. Let's do 9-patch. So what I'm going to do is get I have a file. I go to game art. I should just have a default 9-patch clear, and I'm going to make a GUI folder. I'm going to give that an art folder. You might do this a little bit differently. You might have like a top level art folder. I like organizing it by its type. It just keeps things a lot more organized. All right, so we have that in here. You can see how it's all fuzzy, right? That looks like garbage. That's because our import settings default to some kind of filtering. So what I'm going to do is preset 2D pixel, because we're doing pixel art. You can see it changes a bunch of things here. And then we're going to set that as default for texture. And then re-import, and voila. And since we set that default, now it's always, anytime we import an image, it's going to automatically have those settings. All right, so now we have our 9-patch rect graphic. I'm going to drag that up to texture. Alternatively, you can drag that right up to the node. Either way is fine. You can keep all these the same except for the patch margin. And that depends on your graphic. I do 4 because you basically have to count in, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I do 4 for a buffer. We could probably get away with 3. Let's see. Does 3 work? I think 3 works. Right, it's however, like whatever size your border is, that's what you have to use. So that's fine. We have a 9-patch rect, and I'm going to modify. Actually, let me finish getting this roughed in. All right, so we have a V box. We have that top menu. We're going to have an H box for the enemies. I'll call this enemies. And we're going to have another H box, so I'm just going to Control D, duplicate that H box for the enemies. We're going to rename it to I don't know, bottom. And I think this could probably just be top. And so within that bottom, I'm going to duplicate this V box. So we have an H box there. I'm just thinking out loud. Should be centered, I think. Maybe not. So we're going to need 2 of these. We'll resize everything. I'm going to drag just so we can get a sense of this, an enemy. Let's try. Do I want like a really default kind of enemy? Let's get this one in there. So we'll go to battle. I'm going to make a new folder for art. Should I make one for the battlers? Nah, we'll put all the enemies in there. Yeah, we're doing that separate. I think that's going to be the way to go. For now, we'll at least keep them separate. So we have an enemy. What I'm going to do up here is click on the enemies. And you'll see this start to take shape, I promise. We're going to add a texture rect. Actually, no, sorry. We're going to add a texture button. That'll help us with the selections. And so I'm going to drag it up to the texture button. We're going to do texture normal. You can see it has all these other ones. You don't have to worry about those right now. You can see, boom, we have an enemy. I'm going to call this enemy. Maybe enemy. I'm trying to think because I'm going to need an enemy class for the data. But then we have an enemy. Let's just call it enemy button. That way we can differentiate. I'm going to give it a script. I'm going to turn off that template because I don't want that. And then we do create. And we're going to do class name enemy button. Save that. I'm going to make this a save branches scene. I right click on it, save branches scene. Go to battle, enemies. Actually, no, it can just be in battle. Enemy button. And then let's go full screen real quick. I'm going to open this up by clicking open in editor. So now we have this. And so we made that a scene because then we can duplicate it. And it's always going to have, we'll do 5 for now. It's always going to have anything we put in here. And so if I want to add different effects like tweens, timers, and stuff to this, all these enemy buttons will have it. And then all we have to do, at least first, would be changing out the texture normal for the different enemies. Okay. So we have these. We want these enemies centered. So I click on the V box or the H box, and I go up to alignment. I do center. Top, we're gonna need to figure out sizing. It looks like they're doing. So I go down to size flags. We're gonna do not fill. I'm gonna turn off fill on both of these. And then I go to rect. I'm gonna do minimum size here. Let's say like 180 by 32, something like that. Again, that's just temporary. We're just kind of sketching this out. The bottom one, actually, this probably should be centered. I'm gonna have to. What are we working with more space or something? Maybe I'll just make the top a lot bigger. That's way too big. Top, bottom. So what size am I using? 48. We could try keeping that. We're gonna turn off these. And so it's going to be options. And this will be enemy info. Something like that. And we're going to set the min size, say 48 by 48. This one will be a little bit longer. By keeping it at 48 for now, and we'll do 80. 96. We can center that as well. What happened? I changed the wrong property. What do we do? 96, 48. See how it's taking shape, right? Now for this is not in an H box, so I have to manually center it. And so I'm going to do for the size flags horizontal shrink center. That's how you can center it without a center container. The V box looks like it needs to be centered. And then what I'm going to do is go to this V box. I'm going to do a theme override. And we go to constant separation. I'm going to give them some extra space there. Maybe even a little more. No, you know, I kind of liked it how we had it. And voila. Right? That is our basic battle setup. And you can picture this old school one, right? They had like a 4:3 ratio, whereas we have 16:9. So it's a heck of a lot wider. So it gives you extra real estate that, frankly, if we're copying this or emulating it, we don't need all that space, but it's there. So that's the general layout. We can actually run this, and you can see that viewport stretch happening that we talked about. How, like, if I go here, if I turn off test width, I run it, you'll see this is the base resolution. If you can believe it, it's kind of crazy. That's 320 by 180 pixels. So you can see why I like doing, multiplying that. Right? I need my tea. Okay, so let's finish adding the info. All right, options is pretty simple. I like to start with the easy ones. So they're going to need a margin container. And Then it's just going to be a bunch of buttons. And so this will be, I mean, we can just copy it directly. Fight, run, parry, item. Let's go old school, right? Should we do all caps? Nah. Fight, and now I'm just going to duplicate a few times. I don't know why they're not showing up. Oh, because it's not in a V box. Alright, so I put a V box within that. Oops. Let me just drag these buttons into it. So that organizes them. We can center that. I think my theme separation is a little bit too much. What was it? Fight, run, parry, item. And we can see we have a lot of extra real estate on the options in terms of the width. So I'm gonna I'll bump that down. That might be too. That looks good. All right. And so I could name these, but we don't really need that. Then enemy info. I might just throw in placeholder text for now. So let's get a margin container in there. We're going to do layout full rect. And for now, we'll just do a label. We want that at the top. So I think we don't want it to fill. We don't want the shrink center. That looks right. And we're just going to do like Cocky Roach, 5. I mean, actually, let's do it kind of how they would. So I'm doing an H box. Sorry if I'm moving a little fast. It's just out of habit. I'll try and keep my speed in mind. And then this one, we do want the size flag shrink, not vertical, horizontal shrink end. Why isn't that getting pushed out? Expand. That's what we want. So to push that over, right? Expand shrink end on horizontal. And that's kind of what they're doing here, right? See how we're getting that? And so up top you have the players. I shouldn't have closed that out. Let me get that back up. Okay. So they do players, so we have name, level, HP, MP. So we go up the top, we're going to give that a margin container. And then it's going to be, I believe, a VBox. Let me think. Or, I think organizationally, if it's going to be a V box of H boxes or an H box of V boxes. V box of H boxes. I think it's, no, we're going to organize it. It's going to be an H box of V boxes because you have names, you have levels, HP, MP. And so I have to cut that. We're going to do, what did I say? H box? Did I just close that picture again? Oh my gosh. That's all right. I can remember it. So yeah, H box with V box is okay. So look, we have that. We're going to have names. We're going to call this players. The H box that holds it. So we have names. He's going to have a bunch of labels, right? 1, 2. How many players? What, 4? And we can minimize that. We're just going to duplicate it a few times. So levels, HPs, MPs. I should have given these text. That's all right. So I'm holding control while I click on all these. We're going to give them 0, 0, just so they have some filler. And then I need to go through all of these and change their separation value, which really I should probably just do from the theme level. Yeah, 3 seems pretty good. Then I have to change the size of this, or I have to like center it. No, that's not what I want. I want all of these centered. Okay, and then names. I can highlight those and do player name, something like that. And let me get that picture again just for reference. And then we can update the size of the top. So like try 128. And what I might do is just center that. That doesn't look right. What's going on there? Oh, I hit N. That's why. And I do need the types. We can worry about that later. All right, let's see how it looks in game. All right, so we have our general setup going. So at this point, I'm not too worried about this data and populating that, or the enemies. What I want to get is the basic functionality and the core loop of the battle. So I quit that out. Again, I have that hotkey. I might show you that real quick again. It's in my debug script. You might want to get something like this in your project where if you press, you can just like pause the video here, and basically what you want, I might even type it out, like really, just put this whole thing in there. If I were you, that's what I would do. Just copy and paste that. I find it very helpful. This whole block right here. And you also need this one too, so copy everything here. All right. That's what I would do, but just know that's how I'm quitting quickly. If you don't feel like doing that, you certainly don't have to. You can just go up here and hit the stop button. I don't know if there's a... Oh, it's also F8. I just find it easier to press Q. Makes sense to me. Just remember to turn it off when you release your game, because someone might not want to quit out like that. So, back to where we were. We run the game. It's there. We don't have any functionality, though. All right. You can see my buttons have a little bit of a theme effect happening when I highlight. But anyway, make sure you get a font. Otherwise, it's going to look like crap with pixel art. I'll probably include that font. Okay, so functionality. Function, ready, return void, pass. I just put that in so I don't get any warnings while I collect my thoughts. What do we want to do? So I want to grab focus on the first button when we start. So I'm going to need onReady var options. It's going to be an array. And we're going to go down to, I'm going to minimize top, enemies. And so we're going to grab this V box of buttons. We're going to do get children. That's going to give me an array, like a list of references to all these buttons. So now down here I can do options 0. That's how we access the first index in the array. We're going to do dot grab focus. Excuse me. get the hiccups now. So you see when I run it, it might be a little bit hard to see, but as I move the arrows up and down, the focus is changing. You can kind of see it highlighting. Let me think. Usually I would have a cursor, and we might get the cursor going too. But to keep it simple, I'm going to find my theme. I'm going to go to my button. I'm going to do, when it's focused, make it something we can really see. Do like a nice purple. I might have to save that. Yeah, I have to save that theme. 1 segundo. Save. Okay, now it should show up. All right, see. So now you can really see that focus going. Of course, when I press it, we don't have any, like nothing's happening. Why isn't it fighting? Why am I not running away? It's because we didn't program that. Okay, so then what you want to do, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. What we want to do here is, I want to give this a script for the menu. So I'm going to attach a script. We're going to call it menu. I don't want this in battle because we're going to use this elsewhere, so I'm putting it in my GUI. And we're going to make this a default container because my menu might, later on, like I might have different types of containers. So we just want the base, like top level container class. And you pretty much would only use a container for an instance like this where you're extending that functionality and where you want it to be accessible by any container. But you probably wouldn't use a container node. You wouldn't put a container in the scene directly. Okay, so we have that. I'm going to call this menu. And I don't need to make that a scene. We're just going to manually attach that script. And so we have our menu script here, class name menu. And then we're going to add some helper functions here. So something I like to do with my menus is give it a way to connect to all of these buttons. All right, so I can do like, let me take a quick look at my buttons here. So base button has pressed. We're going to need, later on we might need the focus entered and exited. But for now we just need pressed. And so I'm going to take a sec and I can edit this out, my thinking. But do I want to run it through the menu or do I want to run it through just the top node? Okay, here's what we're going to do. In menu, we're going to do function connect buttons to node. I guess it doesn't have to be a node. Just call it connect buttons to, oh, we'll try that. Why not? And then this will be the, how low can we go? Reference? For now, let's just do node. No, because I might not need node later. It might need more granular. So I guess reference. Does reference have access to signals? Let's take a quick look. Excuse me. I think it does because I think object does. An object is the lowest level, I believe. We don't have to get too much into that. To object, we'll say to object, and it's going to be object. Object. Okay. So we want to first ready var buttons array equals get children. And so battle might not actually need this. So we'll do connect buttons to object. So we're going to do for button in buttons. I'm going to move a little bit more quickly here just because I don't feel like explaining every single thing I'm doing. If you have any questions, just put it in the comments. I'll answer them. You know, if you get stuck, I get back to comments pretty quickly. So, okay, for button and buttons, we're just looping through this array. We're gonna do button.connect, and it's gonna be pressed. We're gonna connect it to object, which I might as well type out. I don't really like abbreviations. And then it's gonna be on. Ooh. What do I want to call this? Okay, we're actually going to have to name this. Options menu. Do it like that. On plus name plus button pressed. Does that work? Then we have to send the button through. So what I'm saying is, for each button in this array, right, that we have here, I'm going to connect that button's pressed signal to the object that we receive through the argument there, to a signal called on the menu's name button pressed. And then it's going to send out that button. And so what this is going to look like, the only problem is I can't copy and paste that. That'll be all right. We'll just manually do it. So it's going to be like function on options menu button pressed. It's going to be button base button. We might have other button types. I'm going to print button.text, and we'll see if that works. I have to call that first. So it's going to be, we're actually going to do, change that. It's going to be menu. And then we can call options menu dot connect. I have to save it first. Dot connect. What? Oh my gosh. There we go. Self. And then we can add focus button. We're going to need index variable to track which button we have selected. So we're always going to make index equal n. And it's going to be buttons, oops, and grab focus. I don't think I called that though. So we do that, options menu dot button. I'm going to change that to button focus 0. Actually, we don't even need to call that. We're going to make this default to index. All right, voila. So we have that. Now when I press it, see what happens? That means this code is working. And so now, see, instead of doing that all directly within the battle script, I'm doing it within menu, and so now I have this reusable menu, which, if you're familiar with a role-playing game, which I assume you are, right? You are going to have a heck of a lot of menus. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you're designing a game, and certainly when you're making things outside of the scope of the tutorial, that you want things to be reusable when they need to be, and you know, don't waste your time making them reusable if they don't need to be. For example, we only have one battle script. I don't have to make things reusable because there's just going to be one, right? So I can make it very specific, but the parts of it are reusable, right? Like the enemy, right? I don't want to write a custom script for every single enemy. I just have one that I reuse. And of course, there's nothing in it yet, but we're going to get to that soon. Okay, so let's go back. Hopefully my washing machine isn't jumping into the audio too much here. It's in the rinse cycle, or the spin cycle, rather. So we have basic functionality at the most basic level. So let's implement fight. I think what we need to do is when we press fight, we want to select a target. Right? And like, just keep in mind, we're keeping this super, super basic right now. Super basic. I don't even know, like, is this the right menu? I don't remember, like, where are the spells? Well, it looks like Kurt might not have any magic. Like, I'm trying to think, is this even Dragon Quest 3? The screenshot I have? It's not 2 because you can't name the characters in it, right? Or maybe they name the player character but not the other. I don't really know. Let's go back to the drawing board on that. Let's check out Dragon Quest 4 NES. Okay. You can see they changed it up here. They're all. It's an H box with V boxes. But man, Dragon Quest has used that. They use that for so many games for a long time. That format. I'll go with the old one. So we were looking at Dragon Quest 3. Looks like we have one down here. Fight, spell, run, item. Yeah, what happened to parry? And then you have fight, spell, parry, item. I don't really get. I haven't played the NES one, so I don't understand why it keeps changing. We'll just stick with what we have for now. It's easy enough to modify. And for right now, I really just want to get fight. So we don't need to print it. What we want to do, let's see, match button.text. And then we're going to have like fight. Or you know what? I could index it. Then if I move the buttons around, now we're gonna use strings. No, I don't want that. We want. Oh my god. Fight, pass. The default, we're just gonna pass. We're only worried about fight right now. So enemies are actually going to be a menu. So for that, I'm just going to drag that on. I think that'll be easier. So enemies is a menu. Call this a menu. Do that. Okay. See, then we do this. Get out of there, cat. Get out. Hey, Tommy. Oh, these cats. Okay. Enemies menu. Dot button focus. And that's fine. We'll just use the last one. I also need to... I need to clamp this. It's going to be and 0 and what do I? Buttons that size. Actually, we can just do get child count. That's a custom function I have. You can just do clamp, but this inherently makes it an integer as opposed to a float. And basically what it says is take n and make sure it's within 0 and the max size there. I might have to put a -1, I can't remember. But we want to do that because say we defeat an enemy and we get rid of that button, then there's only 4 buttons there, right? So we don't want to select a button that isn't there. That's going to cause an error. Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, that seems right. So we focus on the last enemy that we focused on. Which reminds me, the menu we also have to do in ready. They're going to need some helper functions here. For button and you're going to do button.connect. You're going to need focused self on button focused and send the button through. And all I'm going to use that for now is going to be button.getIndex. That way we always have the current index. And now we need a way to show that we are focusing on them. This could be as simple as, let's take a look at the enemy button. I think for now, we are connected to it. So I can do function on enemies menu button press. We're gonna do like just real simple, button dot visible or button dot hide. So we go to fight, we're selecting them. See, I just hit it. All right, we need more functionality than that, right? And for one, we need to be able to see which enemy we're on. So I'm going to go back to this enemy button scene. And let's see, we'll do animation player. I think that's going to be the easiest method here. Why am I getting this? Oops, focus entered. Fix that. That's why we're getting all those errors. And okay, back to my animating. We do animation new. We're going to do a highlight. And so I'm going to click on the button, go back to inspector. We're going to find the attribute that we want to animate, which is going to be visibility. And it's going to be, do we want modulate or self-modulate? Let's do self-modulate for now. Yes, we want to reset track. And then here I'm going to do something like this. Click on that. We go to, we just drag the alpha down a bit. And we have it loop. And I can shift D to play that. And so now we have a little animation. So what it's doing is it starts at full strength, goes to, you know, whatever faded value we have, and then it's wrapping, so it's as we head to the 1 where we don't have a key, it's actually heading back to the 0 key. All right. We stop that. We want to play reset. In fact, I'm going to do function ready. This is something I like to do with these. We're going to do onReady for animation player. I know it seems pedantic, but it helps to have that all done like that. We're going to do play, reset. That way we always know it's reset, and then we can do like, we're going to go here, we're going to go up to its focus entered. We're going to use that, and we're going to do animation player, play, highlight. And then, can you guess what we're going to do next? Focus exited. And here we're going to do animation player.play reset. All right, so now we have an indication of what the heck we're focusing on. See how it changes when we shift through? And that's, you know, I can tweak it later on. We probably need more of like, we need some kind of highlight aspect, I think. But a cursor also helps. But anyway, we can hit that one and it goes bye-bye because we just knocked it into the void. And that's it, we're done. It's a role-playing game. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So the enemy, we can fight the enemy now. Well, we're not really, you know, fighting them. So the enemy is going to need some attributes. Let's see. First off, what do I want to do? We want a hit effect. So what do I want to use? I'm kind of tired of like the flashing, but I'm probably just going to use it anyway. So that's going to be in our process. Process is something that gets called every frame. I put a hyphen, or underscore rather, in front of delta that indicates to the engine that we're not going to use it. And so what I'm going to do here is, let's see, I think I can just do self dot a equals rand f. So we're going to need a timer, and don't worry, I'll explain what's going on. Hit and function heal hurt value need HP. And it's going to be HP equals math.clamp I HP plus value. Baby, get out of there. My cats keep trying to go on my plant, sorry. HP max. All right, we don't want it to go beyond the range of 0 and max HP. That's where I'm telling it. So we do that. We do if apps of value is less than 0. No, that's wrong. We want sign. I mean, technically you could use either one. If sign of value is less than, or no, we want equals -1. I just think that's clearer. We could also do if value is less than 0. which, why don't we just do that? What do I like better? That's probably simpler. If value is less than 0, we're taking damage, right? And so we're going to do animation player dot play. Oh no, we're not using that. Sorry, we're going to set process to true, which is going to be our hit effect. And we're going to start the hit timer, which I'm going to grab a reference to right now. Hit timer equals hit. And this is going to be, what, like half a second? Or half a minute, sorry. Or no, half a second. I was right the first time. We want one shot. We don't want auto start. And then so we just do hit.start. And then we yield until hit times out. And then we're going to do set process false. So it's saying, hey, start the process, start our hit timer, and then in this, we're going to concurrently wait until hit finishes, until that half second is up, and then we're going to turn off the hit effect. And so with the logic we have, what, oh, wait, let me show you that again. Anyone know what's going on there? Why they're flashing? It's because process is on by default. Right, and like any of these functions, they're going to run by default. If you have them, you have to manually turn them off. So we just do set process to false. That turns it off. And then when I do fight and I select one and whack it, oh, my bad, I got to update this. We do button. I'm going to change that to enemy. Enemy button. And it's going to be enemy button. That way we get autocomplete, and we're going to do heal vert. Let's just say -1. We're not worried about like KOs yet, so now I can whack on these enemies. And the one thing I forgot to do is reset their modulate when we get out of that. All right, so you can see they hit, they go back to normal, right? We can just keep whacking on them. Doesn't matter. Now, another thing we can do to indicate that they are highlighted is I have a shader in my utilities just to show you something else you can do. What we can do is put this white color shader. I think it's this file, yeah. So we put that on there, and you can see down here if we go to material, click on that shader, shader param, we turn active on. See what happens? So another thing we could do with the animation player, let's call it like highlight alt. Okay, it's an alternative variant. And what I'm going to do, we want to go back to 0. We're going to add a track for this parameter. Reset track off. Okay. But now the first one we want it to be on. And you know, maybe let me do that. So I need to zoom in here. I want to see. So we could do like every 2, and then I can select both of these, go to that position, and just duplicate. Control D. And that looks right. Might not even need that one technically. Yeah, I don't think we need that. Oops. Shift D. So something like that might be a little bit too slow. I'm just going to try speeding it up. Let's go back. All right, so now I can just swap that out. Do highlight alt. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, something like that. Oh, I don't have it looping. Oh, something's not right there. It's like holding the effect for some reason. I see. I mean, really? I'm doing this wrong anyway. 2.4. Oh. Yeah. I mean, that's just more legible. It's not perfect, but it's definitely easier to read. And so when we attack the enemy, we want to exit focus from them as well. When we press that, we're going to do that, and then it's going to be options menu dot button focus. All right, so we just go back to our previous button. We hit them, right? Hey, notice how it saves the index. That's because every time we focus on a button in menu, remember that I added that stuff. All right, so I'm going to pause the recording and I'll come back because I have to go hang up my wash, but it'll be imperceptible to you. Can I pause this? No, I'll just stop it and we'll come back.